Almost 2 weeks till the next contest in New York, but for now the debate is about the big mo, as in momentum. To last night's winners have it. Cruz took the Republican primary with 48%, 13 points ahead of Donald Trump, gaining him 36 delegates to Trump's 6. On the Democratic side, Sanders won out over Hillary Clinton, 57 to 43, with Sanders gaining 47 delegates to Clinton's 36. Has the momentum changed, or will the road ahead curve back towards Trump and Clinton? Joining me to discuss are Scott Lehigh, an op-ed columnist for the Boston Globe. Scott, nice to see you. Leah Wright-Rigueur, she's an assistant professor of public policy at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. It's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. So 2 crushing defeats for the front runner. Let me start with you, Scott. But does it really change anything? Let's start Republicans for a minute. Does it change anything? Is Trump now on the run, or is this just a bump in the proverbial road?
I believe Trump now cannot win the nomination on the first ballot at the convention, and I think that makes it quite a bit less likely he will win. Now, Cruz was saying, well, this is a turning point, turning toward Dracula's embrace. I do not think
that would be Ted Cruz. Thank you.
I don't think Ted Cruz is going to be the nominee either.
Dracula would be insulted, but go ahead. Yes.
So I think it is a turning point in the race, not I think toward Cruz, but toward almost a guaranteed open convention.
Do you buy that notion?
So I'm thinking, though, that Ted Cruz is lining things up. He's lining delegates up. He's lining up support. He is, even as most of the party hates him, they're still coalescing around him as the lesser of two evils.
To stop Trump, not so much to nominate Cruz, but to stop Trump.
To stop Trump, kind of holding your nose, right? It's the Lindsey Graham approach, holding your nose and saying, I'll support this person even though I hate him with every fiber of my being. So I think that's what we're beginning to see. And you know what? Ted Cruz is going to take any opportunity that he can get to move to the front of the pack.
But let's talk about the opportunities. Here are the next 5 GOP contests: Connecticut, Maryland, New York, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. Trump has colossal leads. He's got a 30-plus point lead in New York, in the mid to high teens everywhere else. Where is he going to falter in 2 or 3 weeks? Going to lose 13 to 32 point leads in these things?
Not to Cruz. I do not see that. I don't think Cruz is not a popular figure here.
John Kasich, Wisconsin was tailor-made for John Kasich. He got 14 points.
I think Kasich will do better here than he has done other places. What Kasich needs to do is not close on Trump, close on Cruz, and make himself a possible alternative to the convention. These two guys are going to hate one another, and you got Mr. Sunlight with sprinkling posies walking in between, possibly, although I think it's only about a 1 in 5 shot. I think there will be other people. The old Muddy Mitzner might be there, possibly.
Paul Ryan?
Pop up, Paul Ryan.
Real? We all love this. We do this for a living. But is it real to think we're going to go to Cleveland and all of a sudden a guy who didn't get 1 vote in a primary, Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney, whoever it is all of a sudden going to emerge as the nominee of the Republican Party?
This is a strange election season, and I wouldn't put anything past it, right?
Really? And who do you think is at the top of that list? Is it Paul Ryan?
Right.
Who doesn't want to be speaker either, and he's speaker.
Right, and I think there's a lot of popularity around Paul Ryan, especially as he's come out front, not to so much denounce Trump, although it was kind of a covert denunciation of Trump, but as somebody who is forward-thinking and is coming up with ideas.
Trump won his district in Wisconsin yesterday. So you were at a fish fry, which is relatively embarrassing, in Wisconsin the other day. For Ted Cruz, Sarah Palin was there too. Can you in 30 seconds describe what that experience is like?
Oh, my word. Sarah Palin, she got up and she spoke Palinese that we're going to do this, and he understands the art of the deal. And it was almost like the thing when she talked about Putin rearing his head up over Russia, and it was almost incoherent.
How do people relate
Well, the
to
people
her?
at my table, a couple of them, I was teasing them. They were Scott Walker, you really dedicated Scott Walker activists. They started going like this.
Well, they were big. Scott Walker was a big Cruz guy.
Yeah. And the table behind me, they had a little something to drink. They started guffawing, laughing out loud. She said, "This is not a laughing matter."
Palin said this?
Yeah, Palin said that. This is not a laugh. This is not something to laugh at. And then
you don't have to press me as a fish fry type, but you exactly. Thank you. Let's go to the Democratic side if we can. So Bernie Sanders, he's won 7 out of 8. And while he theoretically had momentum over last night, we wake up this morning, he apparently had a bad interview with the Daily News editorial board where he couldn't answer some questions about how he'd implement some of his major policy prescriptions, things like breaking up the banks, that sort of thing. But does the momentum matter? It seems to me he wins New York and he's in play. He doesn't win New York, and it's totally over despite having swept her since Super Tuesday. Is that a fair analysis or no?
Somewhat. I mean, here's the thing. So Bernie Sanders has momentum in terms of things like fundraising, right? Getting out youth voters who overwhelmingly, even now racial minority youth voters, are coming out in higher numbers than expected.
He won
now,
every category of women, by the way, except 65 and older in Wisconsin.
Right, and so I think that what's going on right now is that even if his path to the nomination is incredibly difficult, he now can say, I'm not giving up, right? We've been counting him out for the past couple of months, and instead what we're seeing is that he's buckling down and holding out a little bit longer.
See, it seems to me the most difficult path he's got, he's what, 252 pledged voting delegates behind, meaning duly elected kind of thing, that thing's up. It's the super delegate thing that is totally croaking this guy. People who are elected by nobody. There are some, but in fact, before you even answer the question, Jim McGovern is a perfect example. He's a congressman from Massachusetts. His district went by 20,000 votes to Bernie Sanders in the Massachusetts primary, yet he's a Clinton super delegate. I asked him about it on the radio the other day. Here it is. Are you saying that if when you went to Philadelphia, if Bernie Sanders had more committed elected delegates from caucuses and primaries than Hillary Clinton, you'd switch your superdelegate vote to Bernie Sanders?
I would think very seriously about that.
How come there's not a bigger revolution? I don't care. It doesn't whether you're a Clinton fan or not a Clinton fan. 400 and something, like 20-1 super delegates for a woman who admittedly is winning and has gotten more votes. Totally disproportionate. You don't seem to be upset about it.
Well, those are the rules. Do I think it's a great idea to have unelected party officials deciding things? Not necessarily. Honestly, I think it would be more exciting if we didn't have them. It is kind of a governor on the process, a stabilizer. But
no, but see, it's worse. Yeah. Can I not correct you, but suggest otherwise? Put that chart up again if you can. When you're a viewer about to vote in a state and you see it's 1748 to 1,000, you say, this is over. But then if you say, well, wait a second, amongst the delegates who are actually elected by real people, she's only winning by 250 something. That's like a manageable thing, isn't it? If you're a voter next week or in 2 weeks in New York, am I not right about that?
I think it's tough to make up. I will say, I agree. I think if she loses New York, her home state, then I think the facade crumbles.
And some of the superdelegates start moving.
Really Katie bar the door. Yeah,
okay, so step back from this for 30 seconds. One of my obsessions in this race is of the, 22 people who started running? Is that what it was? Whatever it was, in the low 20s. The two with the highest unfavorable ratings, that by far are the two who are leading in both parties. Is there a statement in that? What are we saying as American voters, Leah?
Well, it's actually unusual to have front runners be with such high unfavorability ratings, but I think there's a lot going on right there, right? With Hillary Clinton, it's not just about unfavorability in terms of trustworthiness or things like that. There's also an element or a degree of sexism, right, which has come out over and over again.
But women can't stand Trump, so there's almost
right. But Trump gives them plenty of reason, right, not to like them. Most recently we've seen with his comments on abortion, right, which not only alienated liberal women, also alienated conservative women.
So end this with, what's your take on this unfavorability thing? Should I go over it or what?
I think that Hillary's unfavorability are much less deeply rooted. She's been very popular at different times in her career, and very and seen very unfavorably at different kinds. So I don't think it's. I think if people, want to campaign, they see what they don't like about her, and they kind of shrug their shoulders and say, "I'm sick of her." But I think in general, if she were elected, people would like her. Trump, I think, is a little different case. I think he's quite deeply rooted.
Coming to us from a fish fry near you, Scott Lehigh. Nice to see you, Leah. It's a pleasure to meet you. I hope to see you again soon. Thanks so much.